Batman Fear State continues. We got a brand new CatWoman book, definitely worth reading. And oh boy, how about that Gun Honey issue 2? All this and more on this week's episode of After the Poll. Hey, all my webheads out there, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. And fans, I am your host, Mike Spider Slayer, always helping you make decisions of what comic books to buy. And today, guys, I'm bringing you another episode of After the Poll. Fans, this is the video series where each and every week I take my highly most anticipated comic books that I was looking forward to reading, and I share with you all if they are worth the hype. Now, today, guys, we're going to be talking about not 6, but 7 comic books, because I had to talk about one book in particular, and we'll get to that very shortly. So guys, before we jump into it, if you want to help support Comic Book Corner 2.0 and become a member of the channel, go ahead, just hit that join button right there on my home screen, and you guys become a member. You get extra perks, and it's a win-win, right? So with that being said, everyone, let's get started with this week's episode of After the Poll, kicking it off with the first book. And the first book we're going to be talking about today is Batman, fans. This one is issue 115. This continues Fear State. Now, Fear State has definitely been losing me. I find it a very slow burn event. I don't find it very intriguing. It's just not for me. And in this issue, we get, 2 artists on the book. So you got Jimenez on the artwork at times, and then you get a completely different artist. So there's a different artist, right? And then when you have Jimenez in there, it looks really good. So let's see if I can find a page in there with him. And then you got the normal artwork in there. So it's a drastic artistic change, and it definitely just does not work for me while reading this book. It definitely took me out of the issue. You got your different little plot lines going on, where you got Peacekeeper 1 who defeated Peacekeeper X, and now it looks like Scarecrow is trying to recruit him to be on his side, which I thought that was kind of interesting. Saint Walker's just like losing his freaking marbles. It was just kind of annoying. You got the whole thing going on with Miracle Molly trying to team up with Batman. There's this mind machine that Scarecrow is using on Peacekeeper 1 to, to take over Gotham or whatever the case may be. I just didn't like it. I'm losing it here, but it's Batman. I gotta see this event through, and then we'll get through, a new creator on it. Again, here is that artwork in this book. It's just not the same. It's just like, a second-rate Batman title when you looked at that artwork. So it really took me out of it, and I don't know. We'll see what happens with the next issue, but I was not impressed at all. So continuing on the Fear State stuff, the book, though, that once again I was impressed with, even though we have a different artist on it, was Fear State Nightwing. This is issue 85 of the series. Now that we have the artist on this book for the second time in a row, the artwork is actually starting to grow on me. It actually looks pretty good. And, seeing Barbara in this new costume was kind of cool. And seeing the relationship between Barbara and Dick grow was actually really awesome. In one point, they actually shared a kiss in this book, and then you got Tim Drake going, man, finally that has happened, and it was really awesome. But the whole point of this book was obviously to try to stop the whole situation that's going on with Oracle. They got to go to Oracle 2.0 to stop this infection, and I think this computer is being infected by Seer, if I remember correctly. And part of the cool thing that happened in this book, again, was the relationship aspect of Barbara and Tim. There was one point in this book where they get affected by fear toxin, and it shows in this book that, Tim getting shot again, Dick getting shot again, and just the emotion that was coming off of Barbara's face was just amazing. It was just like, oh man, you can feel the actual pain that she was going through. And I was just like, oh man, you can really show that the connection between those two characters. And when she wound up you know, when she wound up getting out of the fear toxin, being revived from it, and they shared that kiss, like I said, you know, Tim is like, oh, finally, because he knows those two should have been together. But really cool book, and I loved when they come to the end of the book where they go see where I guess the virus is coming from, where Seer is broadcasting from. We get to the bottom of this whole situation, and then it leads into the whole Batgirls storyline of them being possibly killed. I thought this was a great book. Again, even though this is a Fear State tie-in, this book is so emotionally driven and character driven, and that's what I love about it so much. And hopefully when this is all done and we get back to Bloodhaven, the story continues where it last left off. I can't wait for that. This is an awesome book. Definitely recommend. I love this much more than the Fear State book itself. So book number 3 that we're talking about today, guys, is Superman, Son of Kal-El. This is issue 4. Now, I've enjoyed this book right from the start just because Tom Taylor is the writer of it, and I am a fan of his writing. So before all this news came out with John, I was already on board with this series and wasn't in it just for the spec purposes. Now it's just a bonus that I have this book. And when it comes to my thoughts on the bisexuality of John Kent, I think it's absolutely fine because he is a new character. You know, a lot of people were like, well, why don't you make the newer characters, you know, gay or bi or whatever the case may be? And we're still developing John. He was a little kid. He got aged up. And I like what Tom Taylor is doing with him. He's giving him his own voice. He's not a cookie cutter of his father. And that's absolutely fine with me. Now, regarding the artwork in this book, it was just a little weird. The character expressions were a little off. It was kind of like anime inspired. Like, you know, Flash looked a little like a rubber band. And again, just everybody just looked a little off. Too anime for my style, but it was okay. It's fine. So in this story, we wind up seeing that a big bomb was basically dropped on the Kent family farmhouse, and John is super pissed off about it. However, when he tried to rescue his future boyfriend, possibly Jay, we wound up finding out that the dude has some powers, right? He can kind of like phase through things because when John went to grab him, he went right through his body. So that's a whole explanation in itself that John had to comprehend. And what we find out in this issue is that Jay and his friends, they were all, I guess, experimented on, I guess, against their permission or whatnot, and they wound up developing powers. And this particular president is ruling the land and all this other stuff, and now John wants to talk to him because, you know, he feels like he was targeted because of what he believed in, right? So this guy is obviously going to be an enemy here. We also see Tom Taylor bring in some of his characters from the Suicide Squad series before it ended. So it's kind of cool to see those characters as well. So overall, this was a pretty good issue. I liked it. I don't mind when other writers have creations and they bring in their characters now and then. It didn't seem too forced, but it was pretty cool. And by the time we get to the end of the issue, we wind up seeing John actually get enhanced powers, and it sets him haywire. So it was good. It was good. It wasn't like the best issue I've ever read, but it gives definitely a motive of, you know, some things to come when it comes to this current story arc. So if you're not reading Son of Kal-El, I like it. We'll see where it goes from here. All right, guys, book number 4 goes to none other than Fight Girls, issue 4 of 5. Everybody that has watched this channel has known my thoughts about Fight Girls. This has been a phenomenal read. Definitely a surprise from AWA Upshot Studios. And it's 10 women, 4 challenges, and 1 crown. And in this issue, it goes down to the final 2 women, which is by the name of Xandra Blackwater, and I think it's Nora Winters or something like that. Very cool battle, fighting, combat, remind you of like MMA. I mean, this is how you open up to the artwork in here and the fighting. It's so good the way the women are drawn, and just so awesome to see like their fights, and look at all this stuff. It's so good. I don't know how I can express this anymore, but this is just explosive action, and just all the way through the entire issue, you're just seeing this battle, and you're trying to see or predict who is actually going to win the final fight here on who gets the actual crown. And the big thing is who is Sandra Blackwater or Backwater, however you say her name, right? Because they've been doing this investigation. They believe that she is not who she says she is, and the person that's in charge of everything, right, is the person that was favorite to win, got killed in the very first issue, or she actually didn't get killed. She wound up going in a coma, and this guy is investigating this Xandra character. So, you know, he knows that there's something fishy about it. This book was so good, and I loved seeing the action. I don't want to give away the end on who actually won the fight and who is going to be crowned the winner, but how this whole thing winds up concluding is going to be very interesting, right? So really great book. I wouldn't mind seeing somehow bringing back like a volume 2, maybe something like in the future, or maybe a prequel to this, because I enjoyed it that much. It's sad to see that it's going to end, but I can totally understand it, because this is something that can't go on forever. Maybe I wished it would have lasted a little longer, like more contestants, or they didn't die, you know, so quickly. But you know what this kind of reminds me of? It kind of does remind me of Squid Games. I'm currently watching that. I'm on currently the final episode of that series, and in a way this reminds me of that. So really, really good book. Can't wait to see what happens in issue 5. Book number 5 that we're talking about today is The Death of Doctor Strange. This is issue 2. I'm enjoying this series. You know, you wind up getting to see in the last issue Doctor Strange get killed. However, you don't know who killed him. So that is very interesting. So you still have all those, you know, questions, and you want to find out the answers, but you don't get it here, right? This is written by Jed McKay. Lee Garabet is the artist here, and the art is pretty good. I do like the artwork. You got good facial expressions, paneling layouts are fine. You know, we get to see other characters in here that maybe you haven't seen before, like these people, whatever they are. I think they were called the three mothers. So there's some like sorcery, magic, evil people that have a child, and they couldn't leave their child, right? Very interesting book. I'm not a huge magic person, so when it comes to Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme, like, I don't know much about the lore or the history of the character, but I did find this entertaining. We wound up finding out is that when Doctor Strange dies, right, there's this protection on Earth that was casted to protect all these evil sorceries and magicians, or whatever the case may be. And when he dies, like that barrier is gone. So you're starting to see all these other people pop through, right? And then we wind up meeting the Doctor Strange that takes his place for about a week. That's really what's going on. So he came up with this contingency plan. If someone was to murder Doctor Strange, he, you know, took his time for a week and just created himself to come back when he would die to take care of all matters, who find out the murderer, or whatever the case may be. Just tie up all the loose ends. Let's make that story short there. And it's funny because he's talking all different, and he doesn't know half the people that are there. He's like, who are you? I don't know who you are. And Captain America's trying to get a hold of him, and he's just like, oh yeah, I'm Doctor Strange from a different place. So it's basically trying to understand really who this Doctor Strange is, and Doctor Strange is trying to figure out who everybody else is. And then they come across these three mother characters, and they're trying to check out the realm or the Earth the way that it is, and who their guardians are. and if they're going to be able to take it over. And they found out that the Guardians that are protecting this realm are pretty easy because they handled Thor, they handled the Avengers, they handled all of, Captain America, everybody with no problem. And they're just like, well, we'll come back later and we'll take care of them. We got to tend to our child. So when they had the opportunity to beat them, it's just like typical comics. Nah, we'll come back later and we'll do it, right? So, and that's basically how the issue ended. And it is what it is. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it definitely was entertaining. And I definitely want to read more. So good book, a lot of fun, great artwork. I definitely recommend this one, guys. All right, webheads. So now we're talking about book number 6, and this book definitely pushes the envelope, right? I mean, there are comics that push the envelope quite often, and then there's some that just exceed it. This one definitely exceeds it for one page, and but I must say it definitely fits what's going on in the plot. They don't do it just to do it, and I'll show it to you in a little bit in a censored version. But anyway, let's talk about Gun Honey issue 2. Now, this book's artwork is actually really gorgeous, okay? I love the character in here, and her name is Joanna, and she's this arms specialist that is hired by criminals to put guns in certain places so they can kill other people, right? The government is out to hire her so she can do good in this world instead of doing evil. Again, artwork is always gorgeous in this book. The character, Joanna, is very nice to look at, and you want to find out her history. You want to learn more about her, and this book continues to flesh out the character here. You learn about her brothers, how she had 5 of them. You learn how they were killed, and you learn how she learned how to be stealthy from her dad, and of course you learn about her mother, on how her mother was killed giving birth to her. So very interesting story when it comes to the character herself. Now, when it comes to the main plot, she's hired by this guy to bring a gun into the prison, okay? And she has to figure out a way to bring this gun into the prison so the prisoner can get the gun. So this is what she's really good at. She's really crafty. So she winds up going to this club, right, where she knows a prison guard of this prison works at. And she basically, gets to know this woman, and she winds up hooking up with her for the night. And you definitely see some stuff in this book that you don't normally see in a comic book, and you're just like, oh my god. I don't normally read comics like this, but however, it's an adult themed comic. Be mature about it, right? It's like something you would see in a movie. Pretty cool, right? Again, gorgeous artwork. But what she does is she spends the night with this guard. She slips a roofie in her drink after sex, and she'll be out for 8 hours. She cuts her hair. She pretends to be this guard. She puts the gun in a book, and all of a sudden now that gun makes it into the prisoner's hands, and the job kind of went bad where this prisoner went apeshit, killed everybody, escaped. It caused this riot, and now she's teaming up with this agent to, I guess, go find this prisoner. So I guess this starts her quest on starting to be a government agent now. So very interesting book. I liked it. Again, it pushes the envelope, very mature themed, but I definitely recommend it. This is actually a good and interesting story. Great character development on the character of Joanna. All right, guys, so now you're in for a bonus coverage here, because usually I cover 6 books. This week we're talking about 7, but I had to talk about this book. It's CatWoman Lonely City issue 1. This was a phenomenal read, a must pick up. Now, this is done by DC Black Label, and it's not your traditional, formatted comic. It's more like a more magazine format, and it looks like this, okay? And we've seen DC Black Label books do this before. I don't like it because you got to fit it in a magazine box or put it on a bookshelf or something like that. However, when you open up the pages, the artwork just goes right into your face, and it's just beautiful. I love Cliff Chang's artwork, and of course, always seeing his artwork in a book just reminds me of Paper Girls, because I read the entire run of Paper Girls. So it's kind of funny to see a Selena Kyle, like an older Paper Girl, but nevertheless, it was good. I liked the tone of it. I loved seeing all the characters in it, and overall it was a great story. So what was the story about? So 10 years ago, there was this massive massacre that happened called Fool's Night, and it took the lives of Batman, the Joker, Nightwing, and Commissioner Gordon. And what happened is Selina Kyle wound up going to jail for it. 10 years later, she winds up getting released from jail, and Harvey Dent is the mayor of Gotham. He cleaned up Gotham. You know, he did something that Batman could never do. He has like bat cops running around, and he's up for re-election. So in this issue, you wind up seeing that Selina Kyle gets out of jail early, and it's all a setup to get Harvey Dent re-elected again. They want to prove that she's still this bad guy, and they're going to put her in cuffs. And it's like, oh yeah, Harvey Dent, you know, actually is still cleaning up the city after all this time. So it's all for election purposes and stuff like that. And she's teaming up with Killer Croc to find this particular artifact or something called Orpheus. And we don't know what this thing is. It was so well written because seeing an older Selina Kyle was awesome. Her knees are hurt, her back is messed up, you know, and she's trying to look for work, trying to get money. She's visiting places that she hasn't seen in 10 years. And she comes across some other characters along the book, like the Penguin, Babs, and just the interaction with all those characters was A+, man. So let me tell you guys, pick up this book if you were on the fence about it. It's definitely worth the money. It is $7, but you're not going to be disappointed. Something different from CatWoman. All right, webhead, so there you have it. There is this week's episode of After the Poll. Now, I want to know in the comments below which books you enjoyed this week. Are there books that maybe you can recommend to me? And as always, guys, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit that bell. And if you like my content, I'll leave you more content right here. I'll leave you this week's comic book haul and something else for you to click on. So as always, guys, keep buying, keep collecting. Most importantly, you know what you got to do? You got to keep reading those comic books. Guys, thank